called me out. He had me stand up. And I remember the words that he spoke to me, that you spoke to me on that day, that really encouraged me. So what's one lesson you wish someone had taught you when you first started?
I wish someone had been able to convince me to embrace my inadequacy. I started pastoring young, and so there would be older people who would challenge my leadership. Part of my legacy that you can't see tangibly is this: I have an abundance mentality. If you want to do anything significant, you gotta have relationships to do it.
What am I missing, or what do you think that I can improve upon?
A person like you, because you're so driven and you're so compassionate, you are susceptible to two temptations.
Welcome to Live the Grace Life. We are so excited about today's episode. We have someone that I really admire. This gentleman has been in ministry for 33 years. He is a senior pastor of Mount Zion Baptist Church, located in Albany, Georgia, and he is a leader of leaders. He has been instrumental in a lot of major movements in our city over the years, and God has used them in a major way. And so today I am so excited to welcome to the Live the Grace Life, Pastor Daniel Simmons.
Amen. Well, thank you for having me. I am an admirer of yours, a young man who's done some phenomenal things, bright future ahead of you, so I am honored to be here with you.
Awesome. Well, let me say this. Before we get started, I like being transparent because Pastor Simmons has been a blessing to me in many ways that he probably didn't even know. And I remember there was this one occasion that I was visiting. It was a Mother's Day service. And I think I put this on social media. I can't remember. But I remember I was visiting this day. We just happened to be there. And I was in a place where, let's just say I was in transition. And there was a lot of things that were going on. And me visiting this place, we're just here to enjoy the service. That's basically it. And he called me out. He had me stand up. And I remember the words that he spoke to me, that you spoke to me on that day, that really encouraged me. And I think it was a moment for me that I realized, you know what, God sees me, even in the midst of a painful and a transition. And so there have been many times that Pastor Simmons has supported us in Grace Life and Innovate Hub in many ways. But more than anything, it's his wisdom and his leadership and example that has been a blessing to me. And so I want to start this session kind of, like I told you, I said this is a Paul and Timothy conversation. So I am completely humbling myself to this man and to his leadership and his wisdom. So what's one lesson you wish someone had taught you when you first started?
Yeah. When I first started out, I wish someone had been able to convince me, and there were people who tried, but I didn't listen, but had been able to convince me to embrace my inadequacy. I was so busy trying to prove that I was a man, trying to prove that I was a leader, that I was smart, trying to show people what I know, that I pushed God out of the way. Like Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, that's what I live by. Trust in the Lord,
Yes,
all your heart. Well, I was leaning on Daniel Simmons, and I was failing.
Yeah.
But when I learned to embrace my inadequacy, blessed are the poor in spirit, when I realized that is a good place to be, to embrace it, and then turn to God for adequacy.
Yeah.
That's when things started taking off for me. I was failing in my own power, in my own wisdom, but when I started leaning on God, that's when things took off. And if I had started that in my 20s versus late 30s, man, there's no telling where I would be now.
Wow. There was a man that I said a quote. He said, when you come to the end of yourself, you're at the beginning of grace. And I believe that what you just said is such an example. And I think all of us at a certain point, especially on the journey, God has to get us to that point.
Yeah.
One thing I'm learning in this season is I have to continue to die.
Right.
You know, I remember when I first got married, the gentleman who married us, he said, today is a funeral. And I'm like, wait a minute, sir. You know, but he was saying it was a funeral because you have to learn to die.
Yes.
Die to your flesh, die to who you think you are in this moment and adjust. And so I think that's great wisdom. So, thinking back those young years, what's one thing or one challenge you felt like, with the wisdom you have today that you could overcome? One thing, just
If there was a challenge that I had, part of what I could have overcome with that wisdom was some leadership challenges. Again, I tried to lead people on my own, and in the language of the church, there were times when I was trying to drive them like cattle rather than lead them like sheep.
yeah.
And a part of it, again, was rooted in this inadequacy piece and trying to prove I was adequate. And so I started pastoring young, and so there would be older people who would challenge my leadership.
How old were you when you started? Just curious.
30. I was 30.
Okay.
And they would challenge my leadership. And especially in the areas where I was ministering, there were people who knew me when I was a child. And they still talked to me and treated me like I was a child. And to be honest, I didn't deal with that well.
Yeah.
I tried to hit it head on. I may be a boy in your eyes, but I'm a man in God's eyes. But I'm your pastor. You're going to hear me. You're going to follow me. But if I had, just known then to give people time, I needed to earn the right to be seen in a different light. I don't just show up and say I'm pastor but I had to earn that right. And so that's one of the challenges that I would have been able to overcome. Learning how to deal with people and earn their trust, earn their respect so that they want to follow you like sheep and not have to be driven like cattle, because that don't work.
Wow. So now that we're on the lenses of ministry, 33 years of ministry. First off, I don't know how you did it. I know Grace was with you. 33 years is a lot. For those that don't know, I was an executive pastor for 1 year. That was a lot for me. It was a lot mentally. It was a lot trying to balance it all, especially because it was a volunteer role. And so we were doing all of this, and it weighs on you. The people, because you care.
Right.
You care a lot about people. You have a lot of this person here, this situation here, and it seems like it's never ending. How do you navigate, especially you have the largest church, African American church in this region. How do you manage all of that? Like with all the people and all the situations and feeling the weight of people and not breaking under pressure.
Yeah. It starts with the life balance. As you know, we're the vessel. And if the vessel is broken, if the vessel is weak, there's no capacity there to deal with the things you're dealing with. And so for me, it was finding the life balance. And it looks like this. You hear pastors say that I'm on call 24/7.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh, wow.
Congregation understands that. In order for me to be at my best, I have to have time alone with God. And that's scheduled on my calendar. When my children were home, they understood. That's daddy's time with God.
Yeah.
They don't bother me. My wife understands. So when I'm in that time with God, she won't even come in the room.
Wow. Okay.
She understands. And she may need something, but they understand that's his time. Yeah. And then my family understood and the congregation understand that's family time. Yeah. So I don't care what's going on at that church. They know that's when it's time with my children, my family, that's where I am. Yeah. And it wasn't always like that now. But I had a collision, a wreck, trying to do it the other way. Yeah. And then when I'm with the church, I'm with the church.
Yeah.
And how do I balance and manage all that's going on? Again, by understanding clearly that I cannot carry their problems. I carry them to God. Yeah. I help them to manage all of that. But it's not my burden. And I'm not saying I don't care. I do. Yeah. But there was a time when I tried to solve it on my own. If you came to Pastor Simmons, Pastor Simmons was going to fix it. I was going to find a way to fix it. Yeah. But now I know I don't have to fix every problem. And so understanding what my role is, and so I don't have to carry it all, but God does that. And then two other things I did. And so God helps me to carry it, but you also got to have other people. So I have surrounded myself with people who can help me. And so, for example, I don't do all of the counseling. I've got some wonderful counselors.
Wonderful. Yeah.
I can pray and get a prayer through, but I understand I'm not the only person in Mount Zion who can do it.
Yeah.
Have some wonderful intercessors who can pray with people, who can go visit the sick. And again, now I still do that, but it's too much for me to handle by myself. So I give you an example. So you start talking about the size of a congregation. And I pastored another church before Mount Zion, had less than 200 people. If we had 15 funerals a year, we would have, we did something. But I've had 60, 70 funerals a year.
Wow.
That's 60, 70 families that need counseling and care.
Yeah.
It's 100 marriages, in trouble. So everything multiplies when you get that size. So I got some wonderful people around me that help me. Yeah. And then the last thing is I had to, and I didn't have it at first, I had to find somebody who can pour into me. And I am blessed with a wonderful wife. And here's what she understands, that she cannot be my everything, and I cannot be her everything.
Wow.
And so there are things that she can pour into me, but she can't pour into me everything that I need, and she understands that.
Wow.
And so, for example, when my father was living, he was one of those people that poured into me, and he left a void. And so God brought me in contact with a older pastor in Austin, Texas, G.B. Clark. And, he passed last year, but he poured into me, and she would let me, and the church would let me just take off and go to Texas and just sit with him. And that man could just, he'd been pastoring 16 years. And when I stepped in his presence, he could read me.
Yeah.
He could read me.
Yeah.
When my son died and I had to do my son's eulogy, I called him, and he helped me through it. And so I had him. I had some younger people because I wanted to stay connected with the young crowd. And so I had younger people. And so getting people who can pour into you and fill you up. So when I stood up in front of the congregation, when I stood in front of somebody to help them, I was a full vessel and not empty, because you don't want to go before people when you have nothing to pour. And I know I've done a lot of rambling.
No, this is good.
But you got to trust on God, find that life balance, and just,
That is so good. There's so much to unpack from that. That is wisdom. And you're poured into me, and I know you're going to pour into the people who are watching this. First off, the marriage. Let's focus on that. One of the things that a lot of times I've seen in ministry is that sometimes the ministry overtakes the marriage.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I made a commitment to my wife. I said, it doesn't matter. I'm always going to choose you over this.
Yeah.
And so whether it's me pursuing you, and I understand my calling is not forsaken.
Yeah.
I know my responsibility is my family.
Right.
That's my first responsibility.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, and I was going to tell you, part of the reason I'm like that, because my father was a minister, and he didn't get it right until later years when we got old enough to confront him.
Yeah.
It was God, church, then family.
Yeah.
And so I grew up, I never spent a Christmas with my father at home.
Wow.
Because back in that day, they had church on Christmas Day.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in church. We woke up Christmas morning, he was in church.
Mm-hmm.
And other functions that he missed because he thought the church came first. And so I'm loyal to the church, but I'm not going to forsake my family.
Wow.
Paul said, how can you manage the church? You can't manage your own house. So I'm taking care of family.
Wow. The other thing that you impacted that I'm still, I think, and I'll admit is one of my struggles, I have a lot of people that pour into me, but I've always wanted, I don't know, I remember I was talking to someone, one of the people that does pour into me, and she said, you're looking for it in one person,
right?
But it comes in multiple people.
Right.
And, my parents do very well. I have different people in the community that pour. You, whether you realize it or not, have shared various things behind a stage or just in a seminar, but all of that adds to the arsenal. It adds to the wisdom, and adds to, because one of the things I used to say was, if you've made the mistake, I don't want to have to make the mistake.
Right.
So if you share the wisdom and you share the insight, why do I need to repeat it?
Right.
I'm the youngest, so my siblings. So I saw my sister make mistakes, I saw my brother make mistakes, and I make mistakes. But I realized there were certain things I said I don't want to do because I saw them do it.
Right.
And so in this interview, I mean, this wisdom that you're sharing of having a leader, having someone that can see you, that can, pour into you, give you insight. And that's the thing that I feel like, I mean, you already do that. I know you do that for many leaders from the marketplace. I mean, I see your impact. I see God using your influence. But that was a lot to unpack between the leader of leaders that you had, that God gave you, and filled that void. Powerful. I didn't know your dad was a pastor. I didn't know that. I knew there was a lot of preachers, but I didn't know your dad was a pastor.
Dad and granddad.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And so one of the things that we kind of wanted to talk about next was when you look at like future generations and how you want them to carry the legacy you've built. For those who don't know, Pastor Simmons is more than just a pastor. He is a leader that has been instrumental in our government. He's been instrumental in all the mountains. Really, God has used him. And I've said this before the session, every time we say Pastor Daniel Simmons, we're prophesying Daniel. And Daniel in the Bible was a marketplace leader. His name, I did look it up, God is my judge. But we're prophesying that. And I realize, and I'll put this in here, I always wanted to have Bible names for my children, so I named my child Elijah. But every single time you say a person's name, you're prophesying something, whether people realize it or not. And Pastor Simmons, the first name is Daniel, and he is a Daniel in this community. Whether we realize it or not, I don't think we'd even think about it. But how do you look, how would you like to see future generations carry the legacy you've built? Let's focus on that.
What keep saying my name. Because I had not thought about it in that light. First of all, what I'd like to see is that the future generations would, first of all, just recognize that there's a legacy worth carrying on. Because oftentimes one of the disconnects is young people don't think that their elders have contributed anything of value. And so first, I just hope they see some value in it. And then secondly, there are some core things about everything that I've done, and I hope that they will see that, keep that, and then just build upon it. And so, for example, core, God is at the center of everything that I've done. I tell people, they ask me this all the time, well, at some point that you put together a strategic plan. And I told them my strategic plan is simple. I'm trusting God day by day.
Wow.
And he just makes this stuff unfold. And then the second thing, it can't be about you. Once it's about you, it falls apart. And then the third thing is it has to be about making life better for people. And that's people in general. And then the last thing is part of my legacy that you can't see tangibly is this. I have an abundance mentality. And part of what has enabled me to do what I do, to collaborate, to invite other people in, is I believe that there's enough for everybody. And me partnering with you does not diminish me. Me sharing with you does not diminish anything. There are enough resources out there for everybody. And we work together, we get a lot done. In one of those marketplace experiences, I tell you this, then I hush.
Okay. All right.
A lot of people in the marketplace don't understand the abundance mentality. So I was in a room getting some resources for something for the community. Something you said, I think that my job is beyond the walls of Mount Zion. It's in the marketplace, government, everywhere. So I'm getting something for the marketplace. And person has already said that I can get it. And so I said, before we talk about me, there's somebody else I want to talk about. They've got this project, and and it's worthy, and it's going to do this, it's going to benefit the people. And he looks at me sarcastically and says, well, if you think so much of it, give him some of yours. And I knew that there was another pot they could have got. I said, I tell you what, take it out. But I know I said I needed that, but if they got to get it and it comes out of mine, I don't mind, because there's more somewhere.
Yeah.
And he just sat there with his mouth open.
Yeah.
And so, but there's so many resources out there, nobody should have to like.
Yeah.
And that mindset is important because, part of my legacy is pushing boundaries and doing the unexpected. And so the next generation, that's the mindset you got to have. Yeah. Not limiting, but just open. It's out there. You just got to let the Lord lead you to it.
That's a powerful nugget, because one of the things that, and I will say, your legacy will continue in many of us. That is a principle that I've learned from you. And seeing how you collaborate with people, your ability to, connect with people, make things work for the betterment of people, for the community. And whether people realize it or not, you've been instrumental in a lot of things. Yeah. And you're working on some projects now with the Harlem Renaissance and the Civil Rights Museum, all these things that y'all have done, Samaritan's Clinic, all of these things that y'all do on a daily basis, and that story has to continue.
Right.
And it will. But I think the thing that when you're talking about collaboration, I deal with that in the sense of what you're saying, that people have a poverty mindset, or they have a crab in a barrel mentality, and it's challenging people to think in a way, listen, you could do the exact same thing as me, but there are more than enough people in this community and this world. Yeah. So how do we push? Because my last few things that I've been trying to do is trying to get businesses to work together. Mm-hmm. And even if you're doing the same thing, work together, you can get better contracts and better opportunities if we can do that. And so I'm trying to push, this, especially 2012, 25, that's my focus, is pushing people to work together. So that's a really great principle.
Yeah.
Did you want?
It is. And I'm just going to say, keep pushing in that direction. You're on the right path.
And you've done that, and I'll say this, Pastor Simmons has done that in the ministry sector, both sectors, but in the ministry sector, he's created the Coalition of Pastors, or churches, and they're churches that work together, that help meet needs in the health sector, and y'all do many other things as well. And I think one of the things that taught me is I began to look at the Albany landscape a little bit differently. I feel like every pastor brings something to the table. Right. And I don't think that one competes with the, that's how I look at it anyway. One competes with the other. I think there's so much that everybody has. You may be very good in this particular area, and so when God puts people in a community, I believe that they're for a purpose.
Right.
And so for you, it would be being a leader of leaders, utilizing your influence, you're leveraging the relationships. Right. Speaking of that, so one of the things that Pastor Simmons said, and you can speak on it, is the importance of having and building good relationships.
Right. If you want to do anything significant, you got to have relationships to do it. Without them, you don't. Any resource you get is going to come from another person. Yeah. You may see it as an institution, but I break it down to people. I'm not dealing with an institution. I'm dealing with the person. And so you build those relationships and you make things happen. And what you just said, every pastor, every church, every leader, everybody brings something different. And when you leverage that with relationships, and so for example, the Coalition of Churches, part of the reason that started, the main reason, was when COVID hit. And I saw how churches were struggling, and I was a part of an organization, and because of relationships, I had resources galore. People from around the country. Pastor Simmons, do you want to feed people? Okay, well we'll send you a tractor trailer load of food every week. Pastor Simmons, anybody need resources to get And I had it. And I knew other pastors, not all of them were getting that call. And so my job then, God has given me this platform, is to make this available to everybody. And so the group I was a part of was a little too closed because I wanted it for everybody.
Yeah.
But we were looking at one denomination. You know, that ain't how I roll. So we just created something new. And it's men, women, you know, denomination doesn't matter. And so now every church that's a part of that has equal access to these resources that we wouldn't have been able to get by ourselves. And so it started out helping churches. And then what happened is, again, every church during COVID started getting these resources that we were getting money, food, feeding families. And then when COVID was over, okay, what's next? And so we looked at what next. And COVID left some issues in our community, some unmet needs. And so we said, well, let's step into that space. And again, through these relationships. And one thing that happens, I think abundance, and I think just out of the box. And so we go to the fourth largest pharmaceutical company in the world, whose home office is in China.
Yeah.
You know, these folk making over $300 billion a year. And people tell me what you know, they don't do business with faith-based organizations. They will.
Yeah.
They just haven't met me yet.
And so, abundance mindset.
Abundance mindset. And again, I couldn't do this.
Yeah.
And God arranged it so that I didn't meet with somebody down the line that would make a decision by asking somebody else. But God arranged for the CEO of the company and I to meet.
Wow.
And connected us. And something happened that the people in our organization say has never happened. One, she's never talked to anybody, as they say, at my level. Kings talk to kings. They didn't see me as a king. So
I love it.
So she came to Albany.
Wow.
All of us staff said, you can't do that. You can't do that. She came because I met her in Atlanta, and she came to see the need. And so she's resourced, not just Mount Zion, but all these churches in the coalition. Now I could have kept it all, but that's not the right thing to do. And I could tell you other instances. So as these churches, we're being resourced with training, with resources to do ministry. And if we are open to the possibilities, it's endless. And one of the reasons it happened is we are together.
Yeah.
That coalition. This is what I hear. And there are several groups that we're connected with nationally that are pouring in resources. We've not seen churches work together like they are in Albany.
Wow. Yeah. And that's a blessing. I remember in just a private prayer that I prayed. And I remember this was like 2016, 2017, and I was praying because I've always cared about this community. This is the city I was born in. I believe in the potential of this region. I will always believe in it. And one of the things that I was praying for is to see churches work together and to see how God used Daniel and the Bible in his name. But the power of bringing but let me show honor Pastor Simmons being able to bring the churches together to work, bring those resources together. And that's a lesson not only in business, leadership, but life in general. Right. The ability to have an abundance mindset. I was talking to ASU students yesterday, and I was telling them how when anybody that has 6 figures, 7 figures, when they deal with mastermind sessions and you get mentors, what they'll focus on is your mindset.
Mindset. That's it.
Because I told them, I said, the one thing that people don't realize is you are your only enemy.
Right.
You can blame the circumstances. I told them, I said, I grew up on the south side of Albany, but I can't blame the south side of Albany for what can be produced out of Albany, Georgia. And I believe in our region. And so you're from Cairo, Georgia. Right. What's Cairo like, sir?
Small town, 9,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Everybody know everybody.
9,000.
And, and growing up, I mean, literally a neighborhood where everybody knew everybody. Everybody took care of everybody. If my mother was not home and it was time to eat, the neighbors would say, come eat. Your mama working. And so it was lovely. But let me just say one other thing. I know we're about out of time. You mentioned the Harlem Renaissance piece.
Mhm.
Again, we are calling that a catalyst project because we think that development obviously hadn't come to certain parts of town, and we want to see that part of town revitalized. And so we think if we go there and put these, the housing, the medical center, and all these other resources we're bringing retail, that others will see how successful that is and bring businesses as well. And two, we will do some more. But again, the abundance mentality. And so when we were doing the project and first started meeting with the consultants, they asked me, they said, you all are thinking real big. Is there a number that scares you, Pastor Simmons?
Mm.
And I said to him, no number scares me if it's God's number.
Mm.
If it's his number, he's responsible for it, not me. And I will tell you, when the numbers finally got crunched, and again, we didn't know initially what it was going to be. We just started sharing the vision that God had given, and it was truly from him. The final number was $30 million.
Wow. Wow.
And he said to me, you still don't have any problem. I said, that's chump change for God. And they all laughed.
Listen.
But let me tell you something.
Yes, sir.
Step by step, in relationships, doors have opened.
Yeah.
And in the words of Thompson, money coming. And so we will break ground tomorrow, and you're invited on the Wellness Center.
Yes, sir. I saw that.
And again, that portion alone is about $6.5 million.
Wow.
And what I'm telling you, Harlem Renaissance Corporation, Mount Zion didn't write a $6.5 million check.
Wow.
But friends and resources and people that God will send your way.
Yeah.
They wrote the checks.
Yeah.
And that money, I've been sharing people, that kind of money is out there for anybody. It's public dollars and some private dollars that are ours for the asking.
All right, so we got two more things I want to do.
Okay.
First off, I want to focus on this, and I'm going to end it off. Because I feel like this has been a challenging year for a lot of people. How do you maintain keeping your heart soft and compassionate when things are painful? I know you're in a high right now. Tomorrow is groundbreaking, but let's be honest that I'm sure that journey to this point has not been the easiest.
Right.
Some people, they see the triumphs, they see the wins, the 33 years of ministry, but how did you maintain keeping your heart focused and soft and compassionate during those painful moments?
Yeah. Part of it is done because of my own journey. People see the public Daniel Simmons and they see the triumphant moments, but in my story, there's a whole lot of tragedy, personal tragedy, and then extended family. And so it's hard for me not to be compassionate, for example, on somebody who makes a mistake or commits sin, because I've been bad at doing both.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to lose compassion for somebody, for example, who's struggling with financial trouble, no matter what I'm going through, because I've been there. I tell people, there was a time in my life when I mismanaged money so bad. Not only would my ends meet, they wouldn't even wave at each other. And this was before caller ID. And so I couldn't answer my phone because, folk trying to call me to get their money. And so in my personal life and family, and then Gardner Taylor, man, I got to meet one of my legendary preacher figures. So when you start feeling like you are riding high and all night and you just lose touch, get out your office and go visit your members in nursing homes and in hospitals and those that you know at home, and try and just listen to their stories.
Yeah.
And just make sure it's memorable. So part of it is just remembering my own story, and then the other part is my mindset.
Yeah.
Just never losing touch with who I am and what my responsibility is. And I can never make it about me. So my pain is my pain, but I don't ever allow it to get in the way of what it is I'm trying to do. And my pain is real. and the pain around me, but I understand, it's not about me.
Yeah. All right. So this last portion is going to be a little selfish. It's going to be a selfish for me. I'm taking the moment because I don't know if I'm going to have this moment again. But one of the things that I was sitting somewhere and they were saying, always give people an opportunity that you look up to. If there's something that you see in me, like me as an individual, from your lenses, what is something that you feel like maybe I could improve upon? Maybe you see, because we all have blind spots. I got blind spots. I don't see everything. But from your lenses, looking from the outside looking in, what's one area you feel like maybe I can improve upon, or I'm not thinking about, or just whatever the Holy Spirit drops through your spirit. I know we want prophetic words, but that's not.
Yeah.
I'm just asking from your lenses. 70 years, because you're 70,
Right.
33 years of ministry. What am I missing, or what do you think that I can improve upon?
Okay. Again, as I told you before, I admire you. I admire what you have been able to do. And rather than giving you something to improve upon, there are some questions that I would ask you.
Okay.
And it would be like, who are the 5 people in your circle that you lean on to help you execute your vision? Because those people are going to be the ones that influence where you go. And so, for example, is there a money person in your circle? And that's what I mean by money person. Somebody who has the right mindset about money. They got some money, but then they are connected to other resources that can go get some money. You don't ever want to be in the circle doing what you're doing without a money person.
Yeah.
There are money people who.
I need some money people, Lord.
Yeah. Seriously. Like in our circle, there are money people who know where the money is. I walked in rooms and all I had to do was sign my name because the money people went before me.
Mm.
And I'm talking about
I know.
millions. And they went before me and made it possible. So do you have any money people?
Okay.
You got any politically connected people in your circle, because to do what you need to do, you need them. One of the greatest resources of revenues for business is government contracts. And is there anybody in your circle? If you wanted to talk to the governor now, do you have anybody that you can call?
Oh, this is so good, y'all. Go ahead, sir.
And say, hey, Governor, there's this man out here, his name is Corey, he's doing all this good work, and you need some assistance. I like him to be able to talk to. You need somebody like that in your circle. Do you have a person who loves you enough, but they can be honest with you, so that they love you and they're close enough to see you when you're operating, and so they can tell you about blind spots. They can point out to you what it is you are doing, and then you will listen. You're not going to debate. And I give you an example. We were having staff meetings, and it got to the point where people would be quiet. I couldn't figure out what's going on. So that person in my life came to me, said, "You know what's going on, don't you?" I said, "No, I don't." They scared to talk. I said, "Why?" And he reminded me of another situation where we were in the meeting and somebody said something, and I lost it in one of those leadership mistakes. I cut their head off. I ate them up. And so now he said the word is, we're not just going to talk. So I had to go in and apologize. I apologized to the person, but I apologized publicly and told him, I promise, I'm not going to cut your head off. I need that. But he was the only person in the room who would tell me that. When I stink, when I mess up, I got people who come to me, say, you shouldn't have said that. And our agreement is, I don't argue back. I just listen to you, and I become aware and do it. And so, and they've been depending upon what other needs you have. And then, somebody who can help me with family. If they see me getting out of balance. So I would ask you, about the people in your circle. And then I would ask you about plans you are making for you and your family financially.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
Person like you, because you're so driven and you're so compassionate, you are susceptible to two temptations. One is you'll pour all of your resources in the business and neglect your family.
Yeah.
And two, you got a good heart. You like to give, and you'll give it all away.
Yeah.
And then
Mm.
you and your family, you don't have anything.
Mm.
And so you need to make sure that you're taking care of your family. When it comes time for your child to go to college, you have a college fund set up. You got that 529. You got that for your retirement, your wife, for just making sure that the needs of your family. I saw where you bought a house, which is good. Doing those things to take care of family. You don't want to go broke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that those kind of questions and
This is
and
good.
then just last thing I would ask you is, what kind of limits have you put on yourself?
Mm.
Do you believe that this is excellent what you've done,
Mm.
or do you see the potential for even more?
Mm.
And are you asking God to give you the path to it? Because part of your challenge is you are ahead of most people.
Mm-hmm.
That the people that you need to come, for example, and rent office space, the people that you need to come and be permanent, tenancy, etc. Your mindset is ahead of most of them, and so you got to educate them around how to use this. If you in Atlanta, this is common, but folk down here don't. And I'm not saying Albany is bad, but you have to elevate people's mind to a point where they understand the concept and they know the benefit of it. That's it.
That's wisdom, y'all. That came from Holy Spirit. That came from Holy Spirit, whether people realize it or not. But that was actually really good. I was actually saying that to the students yesterday, and we're gonna wrap it up here very, very briefly here. But I was saying even with like digital marketing, many people didn't even know what that was when I first started. And I told them, I said, the city of Albany came and they said, well, we need digital marketing. I said, I've been here 6 years and we're just now catching up. Like, and so you're right. And that's been one of my greatest challenges, but it's been humbling too. It's been something that God uses to humble me. But again, we're so grateful for Pastor Simmons. We're grateful for your vision, your leadership in Albany. And I'm grateful that you gave us the opportunity to interview you. This is actually a very high honor for me, and I want you to know that, because I speak well of a lot of people, but it's a little different. It's a little different, and I want you to understand that that I value you. I value your example, and I know your life hasn't been perfect, but your ability to lead in a way that even the community can see your values. Your legacy will not be lost. The core values that you have demonstrated are in all of us. And you have spread that abroad, and God has done that. And I know you'll credit it to God, but God has used you as a Daniel in this marketplace, in our region and beyond. And so we're so grateful for all that you have done. And I know many people give you accolades, but this is coming from the heart. Like, I'm very grateful for your example, because it's been a blessing. I look up to people like, Pastor Bishop Daniel Bronner and what he's done in that community. But you're that for this community. And so it's a high honor. And so we want to thank you all for joining us today on Live the Grace Life. Is there any last thing you want to say before we close this out?
Just know that I appreciate the honor that you've given me to be on here with you. And always know I believe in you. I believe that you're going to continue to grow in what you're doing and expanding. And you're going to be one of the major transformers in this community and region. And I'm prophesying now, not just the community and region, but for the nation.
Yeah.
I want you to see yourself as a global marketing firm. Yeah. That's what's out there for you. Global. Not just Albany, but doing this around the country. And relationships will put you in those spots around the country.
All right. Well, I will humble myself to that. And Lord, I'm getting ready to pray, y'all. But Lord, we thank you. So thank you all for tuning in to Live the Grace Life again. We're so grateful for Pastor Simmons. Look forward to our next episode. Y'all have a blessed day.